So namaste, welcome to Satsang today. And just checking you can hear okay. I've got the settings right, good. So as always, Satsang is for the experiential realization of what we already are and have always been. And as such, we're not trying to become something. We're not trying to turn into something. We're not trying to get rid of anything. We're trying to simply see clearer what we already are and could never not be. And as you just heard, there is this End of Seeking conference that I'm speaking at on Saturday. And the subject came up again this week. What is the end of seeking? What does that look like? How do we know when we have reached the end of seeking? So I thought that would be useful to talk about, because as I was thinking about this subject, I saw that we have a question that was sent in as well, which is totally, of course, perfectly in line with this subject. And it says, hi, Helen. It's felt here that something is waiting for a final seeing where there'll be no remnants left whatsoever of separation. Like there will be a bursting through a membrane and there'll be no memory, no thought, no sensation that even remotely tastes of separation. However, there's also a feeling that this is just a thought, that maybe the final seeing is seeing that apparent separation and eternal empty being will always coexist, that they are the same. I'd love your thoughts. Thank you so much. Lots of love. So that was just the perfect springboard for me to really go over this subject again, because it may sound strange for me to sit here and say this, but I didn't know when my seeking had ended. It wasn't at all like I thought it was. And it was quite surprising that it could have come to an end quite some time ago and I didn't realize. So that's not what we think awakening is going to look like. We think we will know with a certainty, or at least I did. I will know, as this questioner is pointing at here, that there'll be some kind of event, some kind of final moment where I burst through, break through something. And the word that you used there is membrane, which, you know, is a kind of a good word for something holding us back that we finally break through. But really, in reality, the end of seeking and the end of suffering, therefore, can be more of a subtle thing that we might not notice. And that's what I wanted to bring attention to today, to talk about. Because if we don't know what we're looking for, how will we know when it's happened? And again, I'm laughing because I remember my own seeing my own journey, where quite some time, I think probably about 6 months, I hadn't been suffering. And I've mentioned it before, but I always like to say it again because it's still quite astonishing for me to realize. And it's always surprising when I say this to people. You can actually have stopped suffering and have not noticed. Because the end of suffering, the end of seeking, is not necessarily what we think it is. As pointed to in that question, what our mind thinks it is not necessarily what the reality of it is. So our mind may have this picture that when I stop seeking, trying to get somewhere, searching for something, I'll know, because there will be this event where there is suddenly no more ideas and thoughts and emotions and experiences that happen in the idea of a separate being. So this seeker may disappear and never re-emerge, because it's a fabrication anyway. It's an illusion. It doesn't really exist. It's a thought entity. But nonetheless, it seems extraordinarily real. And there's this sense that when it's disappeared, or when I've stopped holding it together, something like that, then I'll know. I'll absolutely know. But maybe that's end of seeking has happened already. or is happening in stages? And do we know how to recognize that? What would that look like? So most of us start off our journey as with the identity of being a seeker. I'm coming here to find awakening. I want to realize the self, realize enlightenment, awakening, whatever we want to call it, find the truth and live as that. And our mind is inherently dualistic in nature. It can only think in terms of two-ness, in terms of duality. So it places this upon awakening too. It does it in life with everything. This job that I'm going to get is better than the one I've got now. This person I'm with is worse than the one I was before. You know, this amount of money in my account is better than it was last month. Or it's constantly comparing. How things are right now is just how they are. And mind is constantly trying to split that into two, reality into two. Duality is born. There's seemingly two, in our imagination at least, duality is born. And there seems to be two options, and it's trying to pick the best one. And it does this with awakening. It says seeking as a separate entity, a separate person, the idea that I'm alone in the universe is bad and it should come to an end and it's done. And the open expanse of my being, the emptiness, the nothingness, the vast silence, that all of this is happening in, including the seeker, the appearance of a seeker and something to seek, that silence is better and that's what we should head towards. So our mind may see the end of suffering as having eliminated completely the seeking and having moved beyond completely any trying to get somewhere. So what does that trying to get somewhere look like? Well, trying to become more awakened, obviously. Perhaps that's the most obvious one. And trying to get rid of our karmic patterns, trying to get to an end of those, trying to stop pushing away an emotion when it comes up. That our mind may have an idea that awakening is when I just completely allow this emotion to exist inside me, or this thing, whatever it is. But maybe it's much more subtle than that. And as you pointed to in your question, which I absolutely loved, the idea that they coexist. So the sense of the infinite being that we are, the oneness, the source of all the cosmos, the infinite reality, the silence, is so powerful and multifaceted that it can show up in its formless aspect. It can show up also in its aspect of form, and even in aspect of form as a human being. It can show up as desperate seeking and searching and trying to get somewhereness. And it can also show up as already completely appreciating what is, resting in what is, appreciation of this moment. And it can show up as both of those at the same time. That the trying to get somewhere, the seeking, something that is apparently outside of me, can be happening in earnest inside. And that there's also this aspect of that same seeking that is the formless reality that's just allowing that to happen. Has your infinite silent self ever told the seeker, that it should not exist? No, not once, not ever, nor could it. It's a seeker that's trying to destroy itself, of course. In a way, the infinite silence is kind of watching this creation going, wow, look what I made. I made this seekingness. It thinks there's something outside of me to seek. And then I'm watching it do its thing, just in a loving, open way, as it does with all of its creations, all of its forms, all of its appearances. So what would that look like then in actuality, the end of seeking? What would that actually really look like? What are the signs that we can look for? Well, when we really look, when we really begin to recognize the formless aspect of what we are, whether we call it awareness or emptiness, nothingness, silence, presence, noumenon, whatever we want to call it, self with a capital S. Can we see that it's always been here, right through the presence of the seeking? And then in the absence of a seeker, it's always been there. It'll be there ad infinitum. So this coexisting suggests two. The words coexist suggests the two-ness. There's the self, infinite self, and then there's a finite self, and they coexist. But you pointed to it too also in your question, that your answer, that the final seeing is that they're the one and the same, that you can show up either way. And the end of duality then is the lack of this preference. The end of suffering is not minding which way you show up. So if I am showing up right now in this moment as really pushing against this moment, really not liking what I'm experiencing in this moment and really wanting it to change, really holding on to some ideas that I should be more awakened or able to deal with this moment in a different way, like full on searching and seeking reality, absolutely convinced that I'm not there yet. Can we look at that and say that that's just a way that the infinite self can appear? And can we also hold it in equal value as the formless infinite reality when it shows up without a seeker or seekingness going on? There isn't really a seeker, there's just an energy of seeking. And when it's not resisted, it disappears. So if we can let go of these preference that this one's better, my formless, infinite, unmanifest self is better, and this form that's appeared with a seeker, trying to get somewhere still, doing the same old things that ego does or mind does, judging and criticizing self and others and trying to get to some imaginary place that never exists. Can we see they're one and the same thing, that you are so awesome that you can show up as infinite cosmos, everything, or nothing at all, nothingness, or someone somewhere deeply at peace, resting in this moment, or someone somewhere deeply disturbed, absolutely resisting everything, and that you can show up as all of those at once. So even in this moment, if you're really seeking and searching and trying to reach somewhere, there's also the version of you that isn't, that just is totally loving the seekingness, not necessarily enjoying, not loving, I'm loving this, just kind of lovingly accepting and allowing. I'm free to show up whichever way I want to be in this moment. There's nothing within my self with a capital S that wants to say, you should not be this way, because it's so loving and open and free. And amazingly, when I looked at awakening this way, the end of seeking this way, I found that it happened quite some time ago. I was generally very peaceful. And when an emotion did come or some experience, if there was a pushing against that experience or that emotion, or if there was some judgment of self or others going on, or all of those at the same time, usually, it was just totally allowed to exist inside the body-mind. It was just totally given validity and space and freedom to exist. To me, that is the ultimate essence of love. You can be whatever you want to be in this moment, even if that is really, really resisting this moment. I found out something absolutely amazing in that moment, that suffering was not really from the seeking. It was not really this trying to get somewhere that was really causing me to feel this intense suffering. It was resisting that seeking. It was this preference. This one's bad, this one's good. Because in the very saying of that, I'm dividing myself into two where there's only one. Not in actuality, because I can never really be two. I only seem to be, I really feel like. This is what I'm experiencing right now, and I hate it. This is where I want to be over there. I want to get back to that experience. The moment we do this division, we're emphasizing that there's two versions of me. I don't want this one. I'm trying to get rid of half of me and then trying to accept this other half and hold on to it. But I'll only ever feel half then what I could be. So it's an astounding revelation that this could have happened some time ago and I didn't notice. And in fact, other people had to point it out, which seems really weird sitting here saying that now, but because I'd spent 25 years trying to figure out what awakening would be. And I was so certain that I would know. And it was kind of hilariously embarrassing that it already occurred. And for some time I've been just really peaceful, whatever was showing up. Sometimes I feel more like the silence, the emptiness. Sometimes I feel deeply everywhere. And sometimes I feel like I'm nowhere at all. Sometimes I feel like a someone somewhere, a mother or a sister or a teacher or something. Sometimes a student. And all of that is just in this big melting pot that is me. And there's no capacity now to say, I should not be this way, and I should be this way. And that is, for me, the ultimate awakening, freedom right there. And that is available any moment at all. Whatever you're experiencing in any moment in your life, in your awakening. What happens if you say, this is apparently how it's supposed to be right now, and I'm not going to push against it? Because in doing that, you automatically slide into identifying as the silence, which is just letting this moment be. Even if there's this raging, obsessive seekingness that's going on inside you, can you celebrate that? Can you begin to accept that? Where is it written that it should not be? And are we really suffering from that? Or are we suffering from our shoulds and shouldn'ts about what awakening is and isn't? And if I look back at my own journey, most of it was running towards some should and running away from some shouldn't, some self-definition of what awakening would look like. And this final kind of glorious lesson humiliatingly and embarrassingly showed me that I've been completely wrong. I was overjoyed about it, of course. And of course, the seekingness does come to an end. The energy of moving towards something constantly does come to an end eventually. But that only occurs when this total acceptance of it has happened. So treating the seeker and the seekingness and the sufferer and the judger and the decider and the doer and all of those ways that this separate being can show up, treating that as the self would treat it, and utterly surrendering to whichever way that seeking is showing up in this moment. Could the self, the infinite silence, ever really say, and would it say, especially when it shows up in human form, that how it is in this moment, how you are in this moment is not how you should be? So just stepping back from preference, from choosing one or the other, self or ego, separateness or infiniteness. Is that even a word, infiniteness? Or, wanted or not wanted, good and bad. And just really allowing however you're showing up in this moment, and maybe fine-tuning that to allowing all the ways that you're showing up in this moment. What does that feel like? You can try it out right now. Something in you goes, I'm really getting this talk. I'm really getting it. It's profound. Or something saying, I don't get this at all. I feel like I'm missing out on something really important. I really want to know what that is. All of those are allowed to just kind of happen, aren't they? And later, if you feel like you've completely forgotten what was said and what you got from it, not pushing against that either. that is also supposed to be happening. And that as you just allow that, it's going to re-emerge in a deeper way. What you've seen and heard in your day-to-day or in the satsang or whatever you're looking at in your inquiry, your contemplation, your meditation, that it might temporarily disappear while it's being assimilated and starting to be lived. And that's not necessarily something going wrong. So could your definition of the end of seeking change? And could it change today? And could it change right now? The end of seeking maybe is the end of seeking one or the other. The end of preference. There'll always seem to be two. There'll always seem to be two versions of you. The finite, limited one and the infinite, formless, unlimited. And who said that one is better than the other? Maybe this one only feels so small because we're pushing against it with everything we have usually. And maybe this one only feels so amazingly, beautifully peaceful, blissful, joyful because we're absolutely open to it and welcome it. What if you could experience a finite, limited version of you just as blissfully and peacefully? What if whichever way you were showing up in this moment, you didn't have any urge left to push against? Even if you find yourself deeply identified with mind as a separate being, again, for an hour or a day or a week, what if you don't push against that? The moment you realize, what if you don't push against it? What if that's the end of seeking right there in a really normal, ordinary way? End of seeking something other than I am right now. Some end point, some final moment, some big, massive end experience where the seeker dies or something like that. It's really just a work of fiction that from our mind that is used to looking for a particular experience. And the end of seeking isn't really an experience. Quite shocking to me when I saw that. So I hope it's changed your perspective, and I hope it's changed how you're looking at your own awakening. And maybe you've realized that you're already much more free than you thought. That maybe your role isn't to get rid of the seeker, because you can't really get rid of something that doesn't exist, although really seems to. It's not an entity that has to even be absorbed back into the self. It's an energy that can be quite useful when it's allowed to flow in its highest way. When it's resisted and pushed against, it should not be. Then it's diminished and it can't really function properly. And maybe it can kind of turn from desperately trying to get somewhere to a deeper discovery, using the energy to discover deeper every day, more clarity, more joy, and more understanding about what you already are. So could your investigation into your awakening change fundamentally? Could your practice change into, how am I showing up right now? Am I showing up as a separate being, seemingly? Or am I showing up as the deepest meditation and the formless reality, so evident? It doesn't have any edges, it's everywhere, it's all the time. It is what I am. There's nobody in it, there's just it. Or could it show up as both of those at the same time? And what do you do then? The moment that we don't have any preference, then there seems to be then only this formlessness. Thoughts moving around, a body moving around, emotions, all of that. Nobody pushing that forward. Let's try it just right now. Just allowing yourself to be whatever you are in this moment, all the ways that you're showing up. And what happens when you do that? Instant relaxation. Don't have to have anything, don't have to be in a particular way. Don't have to be only one way. self, after all, is infinite. So hope that has helped to bring your seeking to an end, and that the realization, the understanding that it may be closer than you think, or it may be happening right now. So if anyone has any questions or anything they'd like to ask or share, or if you've had an end to your seeking while I'm talking, I'd love to hear about it. Feel free to raise your hand on Zoom here. We'll see how much time we've got. Anybody want to share anything? Claire, yep.
I'm doing a Melissa. I wasn't going to put my hand up. Just saying.
Just saying.
So, if there's no end to the seeking, see, I've had this week where I feel like I'm falling behind everybody, that I'm less than. I had a conversation with my friend this week and said, actually, I feel like I'm in the paddling pool with my armbands on and my rubber ring, and everybody else is in the diving pool with the big water chutes and the floaties and everything else, and I'm just sat here on my own. Like, everybody's left me behind.
I'd be in the little pool with you because I'm not one for water chutes and stuff. So.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
If there's no getting there, then why do I feel like I'm behind?
So here is this idea that you are, what you're experiencing in this moment is, or whenever that feeling was coming up, is not what you're supposed to be experiencing. Can you see the urge to change your experience when you feel like that?
Yeah.
And what if the end of seeking was just, okay, I'm really, really feeling this way right now. I'm going to totally feel this right now. And in the absolute feeling of it, as much as I can, even if that is a sense that I'm falling behind, I'm losing ground, something like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
If I can welcome that feeling as much as, not like it, of course, because nobody does, but if I can welcome that feeling, then it's got to fall away, because the resistance to this moment, when it's not resisted, it has to change. The feeling has to change.
Yeah.
Does that help? Or
a little bit, yeah.
A little bit. So let's go over it one more time. There's this sense that there's all these others and I'm falling behind these others, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want that to happen, of course. I'd like to try to keep up with the group, at least in my mind, where there are others. So what happens if I just stop resisting that sense of being behind?
Yeah.
If I really look into it, if I really go into it, what happens? Or if you really go into it right now?
It's just a thought, isn't it? It's not real.
And how do you feel?
Better, softer, not as
softer, yeah.
Not as contracted.
Go into it a little bit more. Really, really dive into it. Let's really be behind. Let's really fall behind. Let's like fall off the edge or something. See what happens. What if you really got so far behind you could never catch up, as far as your mind says? Let's really go into that. Just to open curiosity to see what that actually is. What is that actually?
It's not really, it's not true, is it? Because that would mean that I'm not everywhere, because I'd be somewhere else.
And just checking out those others that you're trying to keep up with. Can you find them?
No. I can't have a look at the screen, but no.
Well, what are you seeing on the screen? Are you seeing other beings, or are you seeing, what are you seeing?
Just images, ideas.
At the most, we could call them bodies. There's
Yeah.
other bodies. Let's. That's, you know, even that's a bit too much if we go deeper into it. But are they actually other beings? Like if the very next person to speak, or somebody else later, had the massive epiphany and realization, and this feeling kicks back in again, I'm falling behind, I haven't had that realization, you know, some kind of thing like that. Is it really another being?
No.
And all we're doing here is going into it, isn't it? We're going
Yeah.
towards it, which is the opposite of shoulding and shouldn'ting.
Yeah.
How do you feel now?
Better.
Good.
Don't sound better, but I feel better.
More peaceful, more relaxed?
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you.
Apparently the self knew your hand had to go up. Thank you. Lovely. Okay, so we'll take the hands that we've got up here, and that'll be all the time we have. So we'll go to Angie. Hi, Angie.
Hi, Helen. Hello, everyone.
How are you doing? Hi.
I don't really know how to answer that.
It's one of those questions we always ask her. How are you today? Yeah. You know,
yeah. Part of me thinks, oh, don't ask.
All right. How's the weather there then? Shall we start with that?
The sun has just come out.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
So I hear what you said, and a previous teacher of mine has just, you know, this has been one of the core of his teachings. Nothing is ever wrong, ever, ever, ever.
Yeah. Even when we're really certain it is.
Exactly.
Especially when we're.
Especially. Oh, what did I put my hand up for? It's like
sorry.
it just feels I need to connect. The last few days this body has felt very, very ill again, and so there's a sitting with that, and you know it's deeply gone in that there's nothing wrong. It's just noticed and watched, and at the same time, this is really awful. I'm absolutely fed up with it. What have I done wrong, etc. So all of that.
Which one of those perspectives is more true? Or can we not choose now?
You know, I honestly don't know, Helen. There's a sense here of not landing anywhere as knowing anything as any kind of ultimate truth.
I love that. Not landing
do
anywhere.
You? Oh,
yeah.
Do you? It doesn't feel particularly good.
Can you go into that a little deeper? That because, you know, here's the body that's feeling very, very unwell. And here's this knowing that's there, that's nothing's really ever going wrong. Everything is completely unfolding as it should. And, you know, this too shall pass and all of that. And then there's also this version, this third element to this, which is I really don't want this. I really do not want this. This should not be here. This should go away. This is the opposite of awakening. This is, you know, on and on it goes. I'm doing something wrong. And just not landing anywhere with that. Not picking, not preferring, not choosing which one of those is right. Most of us, and everyone does up to a certain point, would say that this understanding that everything's unfolding perfectly, everything, you know, this will pass, and this is just the play of the manifestation, and nothing's ever really going wrong, is the correct perspective to have here. And the part of me that's really pushing against this moment should just stop, should go away, should dissolve, something like that.
I think on reflection just now, I think that not landing anywhere with it is because it is that there's not a super gluing to anything. It really, it's being noticed and noticed and noticed, and it's just it's moving, and then the next, and then it's moving, and then it's next, and then it's flowing past, and the next. And there's also, I mean, there are insights and light bulb moments in the middle of all of this, which feel microscopically liberating to who I don't know. There's a looking at this human thing at the moment is pretty shit in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry,
no, it's okay.
In some ways, and yet there's a life here that's full of grace, that's full of support and love and amazingness, and it's just all there, and it's all just easing away.
Yeah.
And yet
easing away. I love that. That's great. I'm going to steal all these from you. You know that, right?
It's all very poetic today.
Easing. A new verb.
And there's quite a strong tantrum here, ego tantrum, that, oh, for God's sake, this is it. Well, it's not being reflected as a very good life. And then that's just seen.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's, well, is there a suffering of that? And there's a pausing, and there's just emptiness. Yeah,
so even with that intense, my life is absolutely, I don't want this, and this is not what I was, signed up for when I first came on this pathway, and all the epic tantruming is a good word of ego. Hey, can we still say that's just what's showing up in this moment? That's have at it, ego. Do whatever you need to do, and stamp your feet a bit, and jump up and down. And also there's this understanding that everything is working out just fine, and also there's a strong desire for healing in the body, and also there's an acceptance that may or may not happen, all of the above, all at once, just in this melting pot that is Angie right now. And mind is desperate to find the right one. What do I cling to here? And the self just doesn't really want to do that, does it? No. Doesn't even really want to stop the mind trying to find somewhere to hold on to.
Yes, I think it's kind of been seen that the hanging on to one thing is some sort of stability of truth is actually creating the I that suffers, or
the I is the division, isn't it? The suffering is the division. This one's right, and all these others are wrong. Right there is suffering, isn't it?
And it's created and recreated potentially in every moment, and then it's gone in potentially in every moment when it's looked for. It's not like it's either here or it's gone. It's a constant, resist, land, and there's the I having a tantrum, let go, and there's the spaciousness. So
all from this idea that these different versions of me are actually different, that that they're actually different, real different things, aren't they? Real different, and therefore a preference, this one over the other, is actually a intelligent thing to do. And that system has worked all the way up to this point in your awakening. Pursuing the formlessness and kind of rejecting the form a little bit, or the limited version of ego, has worked all the way up to now. But here is the place where there's no preference and no difference, really, even though there appears to be.
Oh, Helen, thank you. It's just lovely. I'm so pleased that I just offered that up, and
I'm really glad you did.
Given a kind of a reassuring response, but there's going to be no hanging on to that either. It's just...
and here you are in the middle of a really shit day, I'm going to use that word because you used it too, and it's fine. And still able to literally being the self in that moment. Here you are right now being the self, in that all of this is me. And even the part of me that's got a strong preference not to be experiencing this.
Yeah.
You know, and the bit that's really done, can't do it anymore. Even that bit too, isn't it? Wow.
Thank you. Thank you. I didn't
have
think
a relaxing effect on the body at least a little.
Sorry?
Does that have a relaxing effect upon the body at least a little?
I'm not sure.
No worries. Just sitting with that, what we've talked about. That to me is the pinnacle of awakening, where there's no way I should or shouldn't be. I'm just going to see how I show up today, all the ways, sometimes all the ways in the same moment.
Good God, what an answer. Who'd have thought? I mean, I just had this idea that awakening was this, and then all the rest of it wasn't. That's amazing.
That's been my entire pathway. Everyone's pathways. Life shows us this isn't awakening, and this isn't awakening, and this isn't awakening. Eventually, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And I'm finding out in this moment, this is what it is now, right now, isn't it? That's all you can ever know. That's freedom there. So
thank you.
You're smiling.
Thank you.
Lots of love.
Love to you. Bye-bye.
I see John's hand went down. If you do want to say something, John, before we go to Melissa. Or if not, that's okay. Okay, we'll go to Melissa then.
Hi, Helen.
Hi.
Your talk today is perfect. So, and I just want to thank Claire for putting her hand up, because she actually helped me to
I
be
don't think she
brave
wanted
to put
to,
my own
right?
up. So,
Yeah.
So I've seen what I am, the truth of that, my formless self, and the last day there's this thought that I don't know how to be, like I need to be a certain way, and there's someone that feels like I don't know how to be because I really want to be accepted, and so there's this whole constriction and not allowing, just not allowing myself to show up however I am.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess there's just a little, it's challenging to know how to, when that comes up, and then it's like, instead of just allowing it to arise and to just be, there's a pushing against.
Mm-hmm.
And then this whole fight and this whole struggle. I mean, that was my day yesterday, this whole fight and this whole struggle of, I don't want to be this person. I should know how to get out of this. I should know, all this.
But even that trying to get out of it is from the idea that this is not the right way, and there's some other way over here that's better. So, of course, when we discover that we're vast and infinite and formless and everywhere, of course, that seems like the right way, doesn't it? Because it feels extraordinarily peaceful and all of that stuff. And the very next thing that happens for most of us, which was your yesterday by the sounds of it, is, and maybe even right now, this person shows up trying to, and this verbing, this ising, I'm going to steal Angie's phrase, of the ego that is trying to figure out which shape it needs to be right now to be most accepted. So right now, if I'm a good student, I'm going to be accepted. Or if I have a breakthrough, I'll feel safer and everybody will like me more. Or, and it's always doing that. And I'll go to work later and it'll be this person. Then I go home, family, it's this person. And that's all from this idea that there is a particular way to be in this moment. And that idea then gets planted onto the way to be is to be the formless infinite self all the time. That's the way. That's the final epiphany, you know, of ego. But what if, you started off, you said, I don't know how to be now. Like, what's that like when you just stop there? I don't know how to be anymore. Because the formless infinite self is this, and it's showing up as this right now. If you could take a snapshot of the whole planet somehow, or the whole universe, the form of it, the shape of it. That's how it is right now. And in the very next moment, it would have changed, wouldn't it? And isn't that happening on a micro level with each human being too? You are right now as you are, and then next moment you'll be different. So is there any way to be? This question for me was really powerful. And there's this voice jumping up. Yes, there really is. There's a way to be where all of this stops. There really, really is a way to be. But is there? Or is your way to be now, however I am in this moment? Could that be a substitute for it? Or for me, the question, how else am I showing up? And which other way am I showing up in this moment? So I'm noticing something having a tantrum, like we were talking about with Angie. And so I'm noticing this energy of seeking, trying to get somewhere. And I could ask, okay, that's one way I'm showing up. Are there any other ways I'm showing up in this moment? And the kind of attention opened up to the space in which that seekingness is going on, the formless version of me. And I saw every time that the formless version of me was allowing all these other versions to just be what they are. And I've never really just been the same ever. It's always been different in manifestation, hasn't it? But even if you and I did some inquiry right now and recognize your formless self, you would experience it differently than you did last time. It would be deeper or wider or more intense or something. New epiphanies about it. You can never be the same twice. It's just this idea that you can, or there's a particular way to be. What's that like when you just drop that? If you're really irritated, just be really, really irritated. If you're grumpy, be grumpy. If you're sad, be sad. If you're desperately trying to get somewhere, do that. If you're absolutely still, do that. If you're doing all of those at the same time, do that.
Yeah, there's definitely an opening, like when you pointed out me saying I don't know how to be. It was just this instant, like, complete relaxation of the body and expansion. Yeah.
Because it's true. I don't know how to be. I'm finally going to stop lying to myself that I do know how, and I'm trying to find it.
Yeah. And there's still resistance to, like, there was something you said of, like, I don't know, full on being whatever, irritated or whatever. And it was like, there's this constriction of, no, you can't be that way. But I'm recognizing that it's just so incredibly painful to push against anything anymore.
Because it's anti-reality, isn't it? The one thing that the self cannot do, reality, silence, whatever we're calling it, is destroy anything. Even when a form seems to come to an end, it's really recycled into something else. It's never destroyed or created. The moment we're trying to get rid of anything, that's a massive, capital S, self-rejection. No wonder it hurts. So if you're resisting, resist, like just fully resist. Let go into it. It's just another way you're showing up in this moment, isn't it? Yeah. The greatest freedom of all is also the simplest, which is just to be whatever you are in this moment. And to accept that I've never managed to do anything other than that, really. I've always thought I was being this particular person and changing shapes like a chameleon and colours to be more accepted. But has that ever really occurred? No, only in my head. It's so exhausting. And here's the final chameleon shape. All right, I'm going to be the self now, all the time, the whole waking state. I'm never, ever, ever going to go back to ego.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this has been incredibly helpful. I'm just going to live not knowing how to be. It just feels, yeah,
It's really fun. It's so much fun. It's absolutely so much fun, I can promise you. Especially next time you're grumpy or you're lost in thoughts, you know, something like that. Oh, this is how I'm going to be today. You can walk around, I'm really grumpy today and I'm really enjoying it. I'm like really having fun with it. I really
awesome.
believed my mind for the last hour and it was hilarious.
Very good. Thank you, Helen.
Good to talk to you.
Yes.
We'll finish with Christina.
Hi, Helen.
Hi.
Thank you for everything you do. It really helped me a lot.
Good.
So I just wanted to, say that. I have a question. It's more in the outer world. I noticed that inflation is going up and it's getting more and more costly in relation to many things, and how to deal with that in a spiritual manner, because it's something about worrying, I think, and to maintain peace. But on the other hand, mind says you have your family to take care of, what do you do about that as an awakened being? I would like to hear your perspective, maybe.
Thank you. Well, firstly, we can start off like we've been talking about this whole satsang. Can you allow there is a deeper spiritual understanding here that's going to leave you at peace, even with these rising prices and things like that. If inflation's going up, all of that, and you know, there's a lot of the world we're experiencing that right now, aren't we? Prices really going up. Something that's already at peace with that, and there's something that's not at peace, and you pointed to that. There's some version of you where, yes, but how am I going to provide for my family? What am I going to do about the rising costs? So can you start by accepting both of those aspects of you, that there is a part of you that works in form that's going to try to bring more money in to compensate for what's going out, that kind of thing. Your mind's going to be working through how to make that happen, and that's okay. And there's also part of you that completely understands the deeper self. The nature of reality is that the nature of being infinite, because you are infinite, is that you can never appear as less than you did last time. So you can never go back to an older version of your own manifestation. Meaning, what our mind is worrying about cannot actually happen. So the fear is that more money is going out and there isn't going to be more money coming in to offset that. That's the mind's worry, isn't it? Can you see that?
Exactly.
So our mind believes that a lack or a deficit is possible. So expenditures are going up and income is not going up to match. It might not go up to match, says the mind. But actually, that's not possible. Of course, we've all experienced it because we believe it's possible, because we are the infinite self, and anything that we really believe, we really experience. But when formless turns into form, it's always doing that in a way that's bigger and more expansive than last time. So this romantic relationship we have is much more satisfying than the previous one, or just slightly more satisfying. I'm feeling more loved. This job that I've got is, it might not have better pay, but it's got better hours with the same pay. Next job I get has got better hours and better pay. If we look at this, going back through our history, it's always been Our manifestation as our life is expanding. It can never be less, because if it could go back to less, it wouldn't be infinite. It would have done the same thing twice. The same manifestation twice means that it's not really infinite. And that might take a little bit of thinking about before it sinks in, but I'm just kind of putting these seeds in there so that the understanding can blossom. And when we really begin to understand that manifestation is always expanding to more than previously, and whether that more is more of what we want or more of what we don't want, then that's our choice based on what we're focused on. So as we're trying to understand how reality, how abundance, I'm using those terms synonymously, how the self and abundance, same thing, is showing up into form. If I don't have any ideas about it, it will show up in the biggest way it can in this moment, a miracle, we call that. And if we allow it to do that without any ideas about it, it's going to show up in the most abundant way possible in this moment, which means in practical terms, either a reduction in what's going out or an increase in what's coming in, or usually both of those. And then understanding that is the natural state of our being. Our mind believes, and every human being has had this experience over and over again, that it's possible to have some income source taken away and it's not replaced with anything else, or to have bigger bills coming in. I've got to pay more for my heating, more of my gas and electricity and, fuel for the car. And then nothing has actually come in to offset that, nothing extra. But what if that's happened because we believe that that's possible? And what happens when we don't agree with that anymore? And we see that the universe, scientists have proved the universe in general is expanding, constantly expanding. All of manifestation is in expansion. You're always going to get more. And it's up to us, once we realize at least, whether we're choosing more of what we do want or don't want, based on, if we stay with that thought and that worry that I might not be able to cover this because I believe lack is possible, we're going to get more of that. Is this helping, or do you want me to try to explain it another way?
It's helping. It's some good thoughts, actually.
It's a really different way of thinking about reality than we used to. And it took me a while to get this. So, don't be hard on yourself. If, when we boil some water and when it reaches a certain point, boiling point, steam begins to arise off it, right? And the steam looks different than the water, but it's really the same thing. So we can use a formless and form analogy. The water is the formless self. The steam is the form manifestation. And it's always happening effortlessly. It's never diminished when it turns into form. And it's always showing up naturally in the highest manifestation possible. So whatever we're experiencing right now is the highest thing that was possible, given all our thoughts that reality is being filtered through. And as we let go of those thoughts, something even higher is possible to manifest, something even bigger. And in financial terms, that means more abundance, doesn't it? More financial abundance. Abundance here meaning not running out of money. Not necessarily I've got thousands and thousands in my account, but not ever actually running out, not ever having less than you need, actually. So this one idea is responsible for so much suffering that my next relationship could be worse than my previous one. My next job, my next set of monthly bills, my next fill in the blank could be worse or less than the previous one. And in reality, it just cannot happen that way. We experience it happening that way because we are the infinite self looking through this idea that lack is possible. And we experience it really, really real. Just sitting with that for a while.
Yeah. So does it mean that if there is some kind of worry that you have not really settled, it's going into that worry and contemplating, is that really true?
Yeah.
And then until you have this peace, and then that's the way to go with it.
Yeah, if you just let the worry happen,
yeah,
then you'll experience that worry. There will be less than you need. If you look at the worry and see what it's actually about, the worry here being that I might not have enough, or whatever that is. Here it's money we're talking about. It could be sleep, it could be energy, it could be well-being, anything, couldn't it?
Exactly, yeah.
Peace, anything. The worry is I might not have enough, or some version of that. So if you look at that, is that true, and can it actually happen? And there'll be resistance to doing this because minds say, of course it's true. We've experienced it 100,000 times already in my lifetime. But just looking at it anyway, is it actually possible for me to run out? If I am the infinite being, is there even anything outside of me to run out of? And if I am infinite, then my supply is infinite. That's very different to what we've all experienced, but nonetheless is true. Our experience is based on what we've been believing, not on reality. So just contemplating it, sitting with it. And then as you sit with, is it really possible to run out? That question was huge for me. Some manifestation of some money will come in somewhere. Something will happen. We've just got an email here today, a couple of days ago in the UK, saying we're all getting £60 a month off our heating bills or something, from the government. And do you look at that as, here's life trying to show me that I can't run out? Or is that kind of taken by, well, that's not much, that's not enough, that's still not enough to, it's like, where do you go with that manifestation when it happens? So you're sitting with this contemplation, and then you go to the store to buy some food, and the thing that you were going to have to buy anyway is reduced in price. Is that celebrated as a miracle that you made happen with your contemplation? Or is that just kind of overlooked, or phew, it was a bit cheaper? Do you see the shift in how you're looking at it? And if you do this, even for a couple of days, you'll be amazed at what begins to happen. Everything will turn around. Absolutely everything. And you'll begin to, I know this might sound crazy, but you'll begin to enjoy mind's worries, because you know that's a place you're going to turn it round in your experience. You'll feel empowered. You'll feel much more in control, because as a person, a separate being whose expenditures are just spiraling out of control, that's quite an awful place to be, isn't it?
Yeah, and a lot of people start to prepare for for something, and so there is a lot of worry around.
I'm all for saving money and preparing and stuff like that. It's all absolutely fine. It's where are we doing that from? If I'm doing it from a worry place, it's going to bring more of what we don't want, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, that was exactly what I needed to hear, Helen.
Good.
About how this,
So saving up money, paying off debts, getting whatever insurance you feel you need, all of that stuff is great and helpful. And what I'm saying isn't going against that. It's just, where am I doing that from? And if I'm doing that from a place of realization I can't run out, something really happens there.
That's great. It was. Thank you.
Thanks for bringing that forward, because it's it's a big thing at the moment for a lot of people, isn't it? That everything is massively more expensive than it was even a few months ago. So I'm sure it's on a lot of people's minds right now.
Yeah, it is. And it's also different how you work with it spiritually.
Yeah.
Than what we have used to do it, like how mind has been thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So
I remember sitting there and thinking, there must be something I'm missing here in my understanding, because I see some people working with money and they have this ever increasing flow. And my experience was the opposite of that. So even when I got some money coming in, it was always from this worry place of it's going to run out, it's not going to last, it's never going to be enough, you know, and there's all these other bills and companies out there that I have no control over. You know, they're all separate entities to me. All is a separate being, of course. So yeah, it took me a while to figure this out.
Me too. Oh, wow.
I'm glad you brought it forward. Thank you.
I'm so, thank you so much, Helen.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Love to
Thank
talk
you.
to you, Christina. Thank you. Okay, so that's a really good place to leave it for today. Thank you all for your question that was sent in, and for all your interaction, even as I didn't mean to or want to. Hands go up automatically, it seems, on Satsang. So thank you. Namaste.